There's a certain kind of quiet that only happens when everyone is pretending. My Christmas table was perfect. The good china, the silver I only use once a year, the candles, everything looked like a magazine. But the air was cold. And then my son's wife, Rosalie, set her fork down with a little clink. She had that small, tight smile on her face, the one that looks polite but feels like a pinch. She'd been making little comments all dinner about the wreath being a bit lopsided, about my wine glasses being so vintage. But this time, she looked right at me. "Oh, Beatrice," she said, her voice just loud enough for everyone to hear. "It's brave of you to still make the turkey stuffing from scratch. I just read an article that said most homemade stuffing is basically what did it call it? A bacteria bomb. So risky." And then she giggled, a tiny tinkling sound that was sharper than a knife. I felt my hand grip my silverware. The ridges of the silver knife dug into my palm. I just stared at the turkey. This was the fourth year. For years of my son's wife making these snide remarks at my Christmas table. In my home. Last year, it was how my gravy was a little heavy. The year before, my tree was overdone. She had a talent for it. She'd find the one thing you put your heart into, and she'd poke it. I looked at my son, Frank. He just cleared his throat and took a sudden, deep interest in his mashed potatoes. He wouldn't look at me. And my husband, Eric, well, Eric just picked up the carving knife and said, "Who wants more white meat?" Just moved right on, as if nothing had happened, as if his wife hadn't just been insulted. And in that moment, something in me just snapped. It wasn't loud. It was a cold, quiet little click. I was so tired. I was tired of staying silent just to keep a peace that felt this terrible. I was tired of being the bigger person when it just meant I got stepped on. I looked at Rosalie, who was now smiling at my son, and I just knew, this was the last time. She could have her fourth year of remarks, but I'll be damned if I was going to sit here and let her get to a fifth. This is the kind of quiet dig that's so hard to fight, isn't it? It's designed to make you look like you're overreacting if you say anything. Have you ever had to deal with someone who specializes in these kinds of polite insults? Let me know in the comments. I just sat there, my hand still gripping that knife. Rosalie had already moved on. She turned to my daughter, Sophie, and was asking her about work with a bright, sunny smile. "So, how is the new project coming along?" she chirped. That's how she did it. It was her signature move. She'd throw a rock and then immediately start talking about the weather. All innocent. If I said anything, I would be the one ruining Christmas. I would be the one making a scene. I looked over at my son, Frank. He was a grown man, but at that moment, he looked about 10 years old. He was hunch-shouldered, staring at his plate like it held the secrets to the universe. He was cutting his turkey into tiny, tiny pieces like he could make it disappear. He glanced up, his eyes met mine for just a fraction of a second, and what I saw broke my heart all over again. He was embarrassed, and he was pleading with me with his eyes. "Please, Mom, just don't make it a thing. Don't make him have to choose." His loyalty was a rope in a game of tug-of-war, and he just let go, hoping the game would end on its own. He wasn't on her side, but he wasn't on mine either. He was on the side of quiet. And then there was Eric, my husband of 40 years. Eric was now happily eating. He'd turned to our other daughter, Ella, and was asking her if she thought we'd get snow this week. Snow. As if his wife hadn't just been called a health hazard at her own table. Eric lives by one rule: avoid confrontation at all costs. He calls it drama. He'd rather have a root canal than a difficult conversation. After last Christmas, When Rosalie had criticized the gifts I'd bought for her and Frank, I'd been so upset. I cried in the kitchen. Eric just patted my shoulder and said, "Oh, Bea, just let it go. You know how she is. Don't let her get to you." But what Eric never understood is that not letting it get to you is a full-time job, and his refusal to step in wasn't keeping the peace. It was just quiet. He was telling her, without saying a word, that her behavior was perfectly fine. He was leaving me on an island, all alone. This whole thing had been building for so long. It was a gathering storm, and I'd been pretending not to see the clouds. When Frank and Rosalie first got engaged, I was overjoyed. But the little digs, the little pokes, they started small. The first Thanksgiving she came, she helped me in the kitchen. She picked up one of my good serving platters, my wedding china, and said, "Oh, I just love these old-fashioned patterns. They're so nostalgic. My grandmother had plates just like these." She said it with a smile. It took me half the evening to realize she'd just called my china old and dated. Then it was our Christmas traditions. The year after, she'd laughed a light little laugh and said, "Beatrice, you use so much tinsel. It's very bright." But it got personal after my granddaughter, Lily, was born 2 years ago. Rosalie wouldn't let me hold her for more than a minute. "We're trying to avoid pass the baby syndrome," she'd said, pulling her away. "And please don't kiss her face. The germs." I'd raised 3 healthy children. I knew not to be sick around a baby, but she'd made me feel dirty. From my china, to my tree, to my stuffing, to the way I held my own granddaughter. Drip, drip, drip. I sat there, looking at the perfect, ruined table, and I felt a resentment so cold and deep it scared me. It wasn't just for Rosalie. It was for Frank, for his spinelessness. And it was for Eric, for his cowardice. I was completely and totally alone. They had all left me alone to deal with this. And I knew as I looked at that bacteria bomb stuffing that I was done being quiet. I was done being the bigger person. The storm wasn't gathering anymore. It was here. I sat with that realization, that cold, hard knot in my stomach for what felt like an hour. In reality, it was probably only a minute or two. The conversation just picked back up. Eric had successfully steered the topic to the weather, and now my daughter Ella was talking about a new project at her office. It was amazing, really. It was like watching actors in a play who had all agreed to ignore the elephant sitting in the middle of the stage. My son Frank was even managing a weak smile. He looked so relieved. He thought it was over. He thought I'd just swallow this one, just like I'd swallowed all the others. He thought his mother would just sit there and take it, and the horrible, uncomfortable moment would just pass. They were all counting on me to be the peacemaker, to be the one who smooths things over, who absorbs the tension, who cares more about the appearance of a happy family dinner than about her own dignity. I watched Rosalie. She was glowing. She'd scored her point, and now she was back to being the charming, attentive daughter-in-law. She laughed at something Eric said, and the sound of it made my skin crawl. She was energized by it. She had won. The main course plates were cleared. I brought out the pecan pie and the pumpkin pie, the ones I'd been up late baking. "Oh, pie!" Rosalie clapped her hands together. "My favorite." I served everyone. We sat. And then Frank made his mistake. He was trying so hard to be normal. He turned to me, "Mom, this pie is amazing. You know, I was telling Rosalie about how you used to make this for every holiday. Lily is going to love it when she's old enough." It was an olive branch, a small, weak one, but it was his. He was trying to connect. Rosalie just laughed. It wasn't the tinkling bell this time. It was a short, sharp bark. "Oh, Frank, honey, no," she said, waving her fork. "We're not doing sugar like that." not refined sugar. Anyway, we're raising Lily without all the baggage of that generation. I just looked at her. She wasn't done. She turned to me, her face a perfect mask of fake concern. Beatrice, I hope you understand. It's just that, well, parenting has changed. We've learned so much more about, well, everything. All the new studies show how damaging that old school clean your plate and sugar is a treat mentality was. She leaned in like she was sharing a secret. Frank and I were just talking about it. It's so hard to undo the damage of, outdated ideas. We're just so glad we know better now, for Lily's sake. And there it was. It wasn't just my china. It wasn't just my tinsel or my gravy. It was my motherhood. My entire life's work. She had just called me damage. She had sat at my table in my home, eating the food I made, and told me that the way I raised my children, the children I was so proud of, was outdated and baggage. And then the final twist of the knife. She sighed, a dramatic, world-weary sound. No offense, Beatrice. It's just you get to a certain age and you get so set in your ways. It's hard for people, well, for your generation, to really get it. You just get so out of touch. Out of touch. The words just hung there. The silence in the room was absolute. Even Eric had stopped eating. I didn't feel hurt. The hurt was gone. All those years of being poked, of being dismissed, of being called old-fashioned and nostalgic and germy, it all just vanished. And in its place was a feeling as clear and as cold as ice. Fury. I saw, in that instant, my son's wife for exactly what she was. A bully. A person who only felt big by making someone else feel small. And I saw my son, who was now staring at his pie, unable to speak. And my husband, who was looking at his plate, just wishing he could disappear. I thought, no, not this time. You don't get to call me damage in my own home. Slowly, deliberately, I set my fork down on the china plate. It made a very small, very sharp clink. I picked up my napkin and dabbed my mouth. I reached for my water glass and took one long, slow sip, my eyes never leaving her face. Then I put the glass down, and I turned my whole body in my chair to face her. Rosalie had stopped smiling. Rosalie's fake concerned look just dissolved. Her eyes got wide. She looked like I'd just thrown my water glass at her. The whole table was frozen. My daughters, Ella and Sophie, looked terrified. I kept my voice low. I wasn't shaking. I wasn't crying. I was so far past that. I felt cold and clear. Rosalie, I said, and my voice sounded strange in the silent room. That is quite enough. She tried to laugh. A nervous, high-pitched sound. Goodness, Beatrice, what on earth do you? No, I said. I cut her right off. You don't get to do that. You don't get to pretend you don't know what I'm talking about. Not this time. I looked right at her. For 4 years, I have sat at this table in my own home, and I have let you insult me. I have stayed silent because I was trying to keep the peace. But I've realized all keeping the peace means is that I let you be cruel, and I say nothing. Rosalie's face had gone pale. She was looking at Frank, but he was staring at his pie plate so hard I thought he might crack it. I am done, I said. I am done letting you chip away at me. The first year, it was my wedding china. So nostalgic, you said. The year after, you laughed at my Christmas tree because it had so much tinsel. You've made comments about my gravy, my wine glasses. You even made me feel like I was germy and too stupid to hold my own granddaughter. Mom, Frank finally whispered. It was a warning. Mom, stop. No, Frank, I said, and I turned to him. His head snapped up, shocked. I won't stop. Where have you been? You sit there every year and you let her do it. You stare at your plate. You let her say these things to your mother. You just let it happen. Frank flinched like I'd slapped him. Rosalie finally found her voice. And, of course, she was the victim. I cannot believe this. Her voice started to rise, and her eyes filled with tears. I have been nothing but kind to you. I was joking. My goodness, Beatrice, can't you take a simple joke? You are being so sensitive. She looked around the table, desperate for an ally. Eric? Frank? Isn't this insane? I was just making conversation. And that's when it all just fell away. All the fear. All the years of just taking it. No, Rosalie, I said, and my voice was so calm, it even surprised me. It's not a joke. Let me tell you the difference. A joke is when everyone is laughing. When you say my stuffing is a bacteria bomb, you're not joking. You're calling my food dangerous. When you say the way I raise my children is baggage that you have to undo, you're not joking. You're calling me a bad mother. And when you look me in the eye and tell me I'm out of touch, you're not joking. You're just being mean. That's not what I meant, she cried. What did you mean, Rosalie? I asked. What did you mean when you said my home was lopsided? What did you mean when you said my gifts were heavy? You are a smart woman. You know exactly what you're doing. You know exactly how your words land. I leaned forward just a little. For 4 years, you've been testing. You've been pushing just a little bit more each time to see how much disrespect I would swallow, to see how much I would put up with just to have my son here for Christmas. You've been sitting in my home, eating my food, and finding new ways to tell me that I'm not good enough. I felt a lifetime of frustration pouring out of me, but it wasn't hot. It was just true. Well, you found the end of it. It's over. I looked at Frank. I looked at Eric, who was as pale as a ghost, and looked like he was going to be sick. Then I looked right back at Rosalie. You will not come into my home and speak to me like that ever again. You will not insult my cooking or my housekeeping or my motherhood. You will not call me damage. You will not call me out of touch. You will not disrespect me. I picked up my napkin and placed it on the table. It stops. Now, okay, the moment we were all waiting for. Beatrice finally did it. But I need to know what you think. Was she right to do it at the Christmas dinner table, in front of everyone? Or should she have waited and spoken to Rosalie in private? Drop a Team Beatrice in the comments if you're on her side. The silence that followed was absolute. It was so heavy, I felt like I could have reached out and touched it. Rosalie just stared at me. Her face, which had been pale, was now splotchy and red. The tears in her eyes weren't from sadness. They were from pure, white-hot rage. She couldn't believe I'd done it. She had lost control right here in front of everyone, and she couldn't stand it. She sputtered for a second. I. Then she looked at Frank. Frank, are you just going to sit there and let your mother attack me like this? Frank looked up. His face was a mess of confusion and panic. He looked at me, his eyes begging, Mom, take it back. Fix this. And then he looked at his wife. I saw the exact second he made his choice. His shoulders slumped. He couldn't stand the confrontation. He couldn't stand his wife's anger. And he'd always chosen the path of least resistance. Rosalie saw it too. She knew she'd won him at least. She threw her napkin onto her slice of pie. That's it, she snapped. We're leaving. If you're going to be like this, if you're going to be this horrible, then we're leaving. She stood up so fast her chair scraped loudly on the hardwood floor. Frank, get the coats. Frank stood up like a puppet on a string. He didn't look at me. He just stood up. My daughters, Ella and Sophie, were just sitting there, wide-eyed. They looked like they'd just seen a car crash. Frank, I said. My voice was just a whisper. He finally turned to look at me, and there was no understanding in his eyes. There was just anger. He was angry at me. "I can't believe you, Mom," he said, his voice low and tight. You had to ruin it, didn't you? You had to ruin Christmas." And that hurt. That hurt more than anything Rosalie had ever said. He didn't see what she'd done. He only saw that I was the one who'd finally spoken up. I was the one who'd broken the peace. I was the problem. "Frank, wait," Eric said, finally speaking. But it was too little, too late. "Forget it, Eric," Rosalie spat. "We're done. I'm not going to be ambushed in this house ever again." She grabbed her purse, and they walked to the front hall. We just sat there, listening. The sounds of coats being yanked off hangers, the jingle of keys. Then the front door opened, and a blast of cold, wet air hit us all the way in the dining room. And then the door slammed. The slam echoed through the entire house. It felt like a period at the end of a sentence. And then silence. Just utter, complete, deafening silence. The only sound was the little ticking of the clock on the mantelpiece. I sat there, staring at Rosalie's chair, pushed back at that sharp angle. I saw her napkin lying in the middle of her uneaten pie. And for the first time, the doubt crashed over me. What have I done? The adrenaline was gone. That cold, clear fury was gone. And in its place was this awful, hollow feeling. I had just blown up my family. On Christmas, I felt a rush of relief, so strong it made me dizzy. I'd finally said it. I'd finally stood up for myself. And in the very next breath, I felt a wave of guilt so powerful it almost made me sick. I just made my son walk out of my house. I just ruined Christmas. I looked across the table. Eric was just sitting there, staring at the front door. He looked stunned. He looked lost. He hadn't defended me, and he hadn't stopped them. He had just sat. My daughters were looking at me. I couldn't read their expressions. Was it shock? Was it admiration? Was it anger, just like Frank's? I didn't know. The perfect, beautiful Christmas dinner I'd worked so hard on was a disaster. The candles were still burning. The tinsel on the tree was still sparkling. But the house felt empty. It felt broken. And I had been the one to break it. The sound of the mantel clock ticking was deafening. Tick, tock. My daughter, Ella, finally cleared her throat. "Mom," she said, her voice tiny. "Sophie, and we should probably get going. It's getting late." I just nodded. I couldn't look at them. I couldn't find any words. I just stared at that napkin in the pie. I heard them scraping their chairs back. "Mom, the food was lovely," Sophie said, a clear lie. She was just trying to be kind. They both came over and gave me a quick, awkward hug. They were patting my back like I was a sick animal. "Call me tomorrow, okay?" Ella whispered. "Okay," I managed to say. They said a quiet good night, Dad, to Eric. He just grunted something back. And then I heard their coats. I heard the front door open again and close, this time with a soft, gentle click. And then it was just us, me and Eric, alone at a table full of cold food and half-eaten pie. We sat in that silence for another 2 full minutes. He just kept staring at the door. I think he was hoping that if he sat there long enough, they would just come back, that the whole thing would rewind. Finally, he let out a huge sigh. He picked up his own napkin and wiped his mouth. "Well," he said, his voice was too loud. "That was a mess." He started to gather his plate and silverware, like he was just going to clean up, like this was just a spill to be wiped away. "Don't," I said. He froze, his hand halfway to my plate. "What? B, we've got to clean this up." I said, "Don't." I finally turned my head and looked at him. And all that guilt, all that doubt, it just vanished, and this new, deep, aching, hurt, took its place. He looked so confused. What's gotten into you? I've never. You, I said. My voice was low. That's what's gotten into me. You. Me? What did I do? I'm not the one who started screaming in the middle of Christmas dinner. The dam just broke. But it wasn't anger. It was just this profound sadness. No, I said, my voice shaking a little. You did something so much worse. What are you talking about? You just sat there. You sat there. You heard her. You heard her call my stuffing a bacteria bomb. You heard her call me damage. You heard her say I was out of touch in my own home. And you asked me to pass the potatoes. He looked down at his plate. He had nothing to say. 4 years, Eric. For 4 years she has been doing this. And every single time, you just check out. You talk about the weather. You start eating. You find a way to pretend it's not happening. You leave me completely and utterly alone. What was I supposed to do? He finally said, his voice pleading. Jump on the table. Start a fist fight with my son's wife? I was trying to keep the peace. Whose peace, Eric? I asked. Whose? Because it wasn't my peace. I've been miserable. I've been dreading this day for a month. Were you keeping your peace? Just trying to get through the meal. So you could go watch football? Were you keeping Frank's peace? So he wouldn't have to be uncomfortable. You just don't get it, he said, shaking his head. It's complicated. It's Frank's wife. If I'd said something, it would have been 10 times worse. No, I said, and I stood up. I couldn't sit there anymore. I started gathering plates. My hands were shaking now. No, you don't get it. You taught him this. You taught him that it's okay. When he was sitting there, staring at his plate while his wife insulted his mother, he was just doing what he's watched you do for 40 years. He recoiled. That is not fair. It's not fair, I said, turning to him with a stack of plates in my hand. I'll tell you what's not fair. It's not fair that my own husband, the man who is supposed to be my partner, would rather have a quiet, miserable life than stand up for me for 1 second. Do you have any idea how that feels? To be sitting at a table, surrounded by your family, and be completely alone, to know that the one person who is supposed to have your back doesn't. I walked over to him. I was so tired. Your silence, Eric, it was louder than all her insults. Her words were sharp, but your silence told her she was right. It told her it was okay. It told her, and it told me that you agreed, that I am out of touch, that I am damage. He just looked at me, his eyes wide. He had no defense. He knew I was right. Frank thinks I'm the one who ruined Christmas, I said, my voice finally breaking. But we did. We ruined it, Eric. Years ago, we ruined it every time we let her say something cruel, and we just passed the potatoes. I took the plates into the kitchen. I set them by the sink, and I just stood there, my back to him, staring out the window into the dark. I heard him, still sitting at the table, in that heavy, broken silence. And I had never in my entire life felt so terribly alone. Christmas night was, I don't even have a word for it. Eric slept in the guest room. He just couldn't be in the same room with me. He didn't say it, he just did it. The next day, he moved around the house like a ghost, just cleaning. He took all the plates, all the glasses, and just cleaned. We didn't talk. My daughters called, one by one. They both said the same thing in hushed, nervous voices. Mom, we know you were right. We just, wow. Are you okay? I told them I was, but I wasn't. I was just waiting. The house was so quiet. All the Christmas decorations looked foolish, like a party dress on a corpse. It was 2 days later. The phone rang, and my stomach just dropped into my shoes. I looked at the caller ID. It was Frank. I picked it up. My hand was shaking. Hello, Mom. His voice was, I'd never heard it like that. It was cold and flat and tired. Mom, I guess I'm calling to see what you're thinking. I took a deep breath. What do you mean, Frank? I think you know what I'm thinking. There was a long pause. I heard him sigh. It was a heavy, angry sound. Mom, you blew up Christmas. You blew it up. She's a wreck. She hasn't stopped crying. She says she can never, ever set foot in your house again. She says you attacked her. I just closed my eyes. The old me, the me from 3 days ago, would have started to apologize. Oh, Frank, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean. But I couldn't. I was too tired. Frank, I said, my voice as calm as I could make it. I didn't blow up Christmas. Rosalie has been bringing a box of matches to my dinner table for 4 years. She has been lighting little fires year after year, and you all just watched. What are you talking about? He said, and I could hear the anger rising. She was joking. It was Christmas dinner. You're my mother. You're supposed to be the what, Frank? I cut him off. The punching bag, the peacemaker, the one who's supposed to just sit there and smile while your wife calls her damage? She didn't mean it like that, he almost yelled. You're twisting her words. You're always so sensitive. And there it was, the same word Rosalie had used. It felt like he'd just slapped me. I am not twisting anything, Frank, I said. I am just repeating what she said. And what I don't understand, what I really truly cannot wrap my head around, is why you are so angry at me for finally standing up for myself, and not at her for being so cruel. Because it's just how she is, he said, his voice cracking. You know, she doesn't have a filter. You know, she's delicate. She's not delicate, Frank. She's a bully. And you let her. The line went completely silent. I thought he'd hung up. I could just hear his breathing, a little ragged. And then he just broke. His voice was so small. Mom, you don't know what it's like. You just don't. What don't I know, honey? It's so hard, he whispered. If I don't agree with her, if I don't take her side, it's a week of fighting. It's a month of her being cold. It's just so much easier, Mom. It's just easier to just stay quiet. I want the quiet. My heart just fell. It wasn't just about me. It was about him. He wasn't choosing her over me. He was just terrified. He was terrified of his own wife. Oh, Frank, I said, and I sat down. Honey, I knew it was bad. I knew you were uncomfortable. Uncomfortable. He let out a harsh laugh. Mom, I dread it. I dread every holiday, every birthday. I sit there and I hear her say these things and my stomach is in knots. I know she's being mean. I don't know what to do. I'm stuck. I'm just stuck right in the middle. You're not in the middle, Frank, I said gently. You're on her side. Because you're quiet. What am I supposed to do, Mom? He pleaded. Choose between my wife and my mother. I am not asking you to choose, I said. I would never do that. I am asking you to just be a good man. A good man doesn't let anyone talk to his mother that way. A good husband would be able to say, honey, that's not nice. Don't talk to my mom like that. You make it sound so simple. It is that simple, Frank, I said. It really is. There was another long, long pause. I could hear him sniffling. I don't know what to do now, he said. She says it's her or you. She says she won't let me see you. I felt the blood drain from my face. Frank, I said, I love you. You are my son. But I am done. I am done being the one who has to set herself on fire just to keep everyone else warm. I am not going to be abused in my own home. I am not going to be your peacemaker anymore. So what does that mean? It means, I said, my heart breaking, that I'm not going to apologize. It means that if she wants to be in this family, she needs to be kind. She won't, he said, his voice dead. She'll never. Well, I said, taking a deep breath, then I guess you do have a choice to make, don't you? He didn't say anything. He just hung up. The call just ended. And I sat there in the quiet in my sad, decorated house, holding a dead phone. And I realized I had won the battle, but I think I had just lost my son. Wow, that phone call, just hearing that silence, it gave me chills. Have you ever had to make a choice between your principles and a family member when you knew you were right, but it was still the hardest thing you'd ever had to do? It's a hard place to be. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. After Frank hung up, the silence in the house was a different kind. It wasn't the tense, angry silence of Christmas night. It was an empty, echoing silence. It was the sound of loss. I walked through my house, still full of Christmas decorations, and I felt, I can't even describe it. The grief was a physical weight. I had done it. I had stood up for myself. And the cost was my son. Eric, he was still there. He had moved back into our bedroom, but he was a ghost. He'd make coffee in the morning, pour us both a cup, and then he'd go to his workshop in the garage. He'd stay there for hours. We were two people living in a mausoleum, tiptoeing around a death. This went on for 3 more days. Just this awful, quiet, suffocating nothing. I couldn't stand it. I couldn't live like that. I had not blown up my life just to trade a loud misery for a quiet one. That night, I found him in the living room, just sitting in his chair in the dark. He wasn't reading. He wasn't watching TV. He was just sitting. I sat down on the sofa opposite him. Eric, I said, we have to talk. He just sighed. A long, weary sound. I don't know what to say. It's all broken. Yes, it is, I said. It's been broken for a long time. We just didn't want to look at it. But we can't live like this. We can't be these two ghosts in a house full of decorations. He looked at me. His face in the dim light just looked old. And so tired. What I said to you on Christmas, I said, about your silence. I meant it. It broke my heart, Eric. He didn't get defensive this time. He just nodded. I know, he whispered. I know, B. I hate it. I hate the fighting. I hate her. I thought if I ignored it, it would, I don't know, just go away. It wasn't going away, I said. It was killing me. It was killing us. I can't be that woman anymore. Eric, the one who just swallows it. I can't. We sat there and we talked. We really talked. For the first time in, God, maybe 15, 20 years. I told him how alone I'd felt. He told me how scared. He was scared of Frank pulling away, scared of Rosalie's anger, scared of what I'd just done. He was scared of the whole thing blowing up. Well, it's blown up now, I said, not unkindly. The worst has happened. So now what? Where do we go? He was quiet for a long time. Then he reached over, and he took my hand. His skin was rough. It's our house, B, he said. It's our life. You shouldn't have to be treated like that. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I just let it happen. It wasn't a movie moment, but it was real. It was a start. We agreed right there in the dark. This was our home. And we would be a team in it. The next day, I felt different. I felt lighter. That awful, hollow feeling from Frank's call was still there, but it wasn't the only thing. I took my phone. My hands were shaking. I couldn't call Frank again. Not after that. So I sent him a text message. I just wrote, "Frank, I will always love you. You are my son, and you are welcome in this house anytime. But I want to be very clear. Rosalie is not welcome here, in this home, until she can offer me a sincere, adult apology for her behavior." I read it over, and I hit send. I felt like I was going to be sick, but I also felt strong. The line was drawn, not in anger, not in a fight, just a fact. And then I did something else. I went to the living room. I unplugged the Christmas tree, and I started taking down the ornaments, one by one. I packed away the overdone tinsel. I took the lopsided wreath off the door, and then I called my friend Carol. "Carol," I said, "I know it's last minute, but are you free for lunch?" She was, and we went, and I started to live my life, not as Frank's mom, not as Eric's quiet wife, just as Beatrice. I sent that text to Frank, and he didn't reply. Not for a day, not for a week. January just crawled by. It was the longest month of my life. The house was clean. All the Christmas decorations were packed in the attic. And life, it just went on. But it was different. Eric and I, we were different. We started talking again. Really talking. We'd take a walk in the evenings just around the neighborhood. He started asking me about my day. He'd sit with me in the kitchen while I made dinner. He was present. It wasn't a whirlwind romance. It was just quiet and steady. We were a team again. I kept busy. I had lunch with Carol. I joined a book club. I started to build a life that wasn't just waiting for the holidays, waiting for the phone to ring, waiting for the next insult. My daughters, Ella and Sophie, they were wonderful. They'd call just to chat. They'd come over for coffee. And one day, Ella she just grabbed my hand. "Mom," she said, I just have to say, I'm really proud of you." "Proud of me?" I said. For what? Blowing up the family?" "No," she said, and her eyes were serious. For finally saying it. For not just taking it anymore. "Sophie and I, we've been watching this for years, Mom. We've been so angry for you. We felt as helpless as you did. We're proud of you. And we're sorry. We're sorry we never said anything either." And that it healed a part of me I didn't even know was still broken. The weeks turned into months. Valentine's Day came and went. I got a card from my daughters. Nothing from Frank. I didn't see my granddaughter. I didn't get any pictures. That was the hard part. That was the part that ached late at night. The cost of it. And then it was Easter. I didn't know what to do. The thought of that big dinner, I couldn't. Eric found me in the kitchen. "What do you want to do, Bea?" he asked. I think just us. And the girls." "Okay," he said. He just nodded. I'll get a small ham." And then, the Wednesday before Easter, my phone rang. It was Frank. "Mom," he said. His voice was small. "Hi, Frank. I was wondering, are you making Easter dinner?" My heart it was in my throat. "Yes, honey, I am. Just a small one. For me and your dad and your sisters." "Oh," he said. "Oh." I held my breath. "Mom, is the rule, is that still?" I closed my eyes. Yes, Frank. It is. I love you. And you are always welcome in my home. But the line is still there. He was silent for a long time. I thought he'd hung up. Okay, he said, finally. Okay, Mom. What time? He came. He came alone. He walked in, and he looked thin and tired. He hugged me, a quick, tight, almost frightened hug. He and Eric shook hands, awkwardly, and we had dinner. It was pleasant. We talked. We talked about Ella's new project. We talked about a book I was reading. Frank talked about work. It was normal, but there was this giant empty space at the table. We all just talked around it. No one said Rosalie. No one said Lily. It was like we were all in a new, quiet, more honest but sadder reality. He left early. He hugged me at the door. The ham it was great, Mom. I'm glad you came, honey. Yeah, me too. And I watched him walk to his car, alone, and drive away. I went back inside. The house was quiet. The constant, buzzing, electric tension that had filled my life for 4 years, it was gone. But the quiet that was left, it wasn't joyful. It was just peace. A hard-won, bittersweet, and very, very quiet peace. It's been months since that Christmas. 6 to be exact. The hydrangeas are in full bloom, and Eric and I sit out here on the porch most evenings. We talk. It's funny, after 40 years of marriage, we're finally talking after the girls left that night. And after my discussion with Eric, things changed. It was like breaking a fever. The house was quiet, but it wasn't the angry, suffocating quiet we had before. It was just calm. Eric woke up. A few days after Christmas, he came to me in the kitchen, held my hands, which felt strange. We hadn't just held hands in years. And he said, I'm sorry, Bea. I let you down. And I knew he meant it. He'd been letting Frank's comfort come before my dignity. He'd been letting his own fear of confrontation make me the designated punching bag. And he was sorry. Since then, he's been my partner again. He'll ask my opinion. He'll tell me about his day at the hardware store. He notices when I get my hair cut. It's these small, tiny things, but they add up, and they feel like a foundation we haven't stood on in decades. We are a team, and I've realized how much I missed that. I've started painting again. I've joined a book club. I feel like Beatrice again, not just mom or grandma or the woman who hosts Christmas. I have my self-respect back. That's the good part. That's what I won. And then there's the part one lost. Frank didn't respond to my text for 3 weeks. 3 solid weeks of me checking my phone. My stomach lurching at every notification, only for it to be the weather or a newsletter. When he finally did call, it was that short, awful conversation where I had to tell him that, yes, the boundary was real, that I loved him, but I wouldn't be abused. He hung up, and for a month, there was nothing. Then Easter. He came alone. He looked tired and thin, and I could tell he was miserable. But he came. We had a nice, quiet dinner. My daughters were there, and we all talked around the giant, empty chair at the table. The chair where Rosalie should have been. The high chair in the corner that I'd kept, just in case, that was now gathering dust. He comes by about every 2 weeks now. He'll stop by on his way home from work. We'll have a cup of coffee. He'll ask about the garden. I'll ask about his job. And then we sit in silence. Because every question I really want to ask is a landmine. How is Lily? Is she walking now? Does she still love that little stuffed rabbit? I got her? Does she ask about me? And he never says. He never mentions her. And he never mentions Rosalie. It's like he's living 2 separate lives, and I only get to see the sad, hollowed-out version of my son. He's paying a price, and it's written all over his face. He's terrified of his wife, and he's terrified of losing his mother. So he's doing this tightrope walk, and he's miserable. And I know Rosalie is poisoning the well every single day. I know she's telling him how horrible I am, how I tore his family apart. I saw a picture of Lily the other day. My daughter Sophie saw it on social media and showed it to me. She has little blonde curls now. She was at a birthday party, holding a balloon. I had to go into the bathroom and cry, because this is the part no one tells you about. Standing up for yourself feels good for about 10 minutes, but the silence that comes after, it's a heavy price. I have peace. I finally have peace in my own home. My marriage is stronger than it has ever been. I'm not anxious. I'm not dreading the next holiday. But am I happy? Is this peace worth the hole in my heart where my son used to be? Is it worth not knowing my own granddaughter? Did I win? Or did I just trade one kind of unbearable pain for another? This is the question I ask myself every single night. If I could go back to that Christmas dinner, knowing what I know now, knowing that this would be the outcome, would I do it again? And the worst part is, I just don't know. So I have to ask you, because I'm truly torn. What would you have done? If you were in my shoes, would you keep fighting to get your son and granddaughter back, even if it means swallowing more of Rosalie's poison? Or is it better to protect your own peace, build your own life, and accept that some family relationships just aren't worth the fight? What is more important, your self-respect or keeping the family together, no matter how broken it is? Please tell me your stories in the comments. I'd like to read them. I'd really like to know I'm not the only one. And if this story touched you or reminded you of your own strength, please don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who might need to hear it, and, of course, subscribe to the channel for more stories. Thank you for listening.